Hi everyone, welcome to our course. I'm Joan. In our last unit, we talked about the symbolic meaning of rain imagery. Today we'll continue to talk about symbolic meaning of rain imagery. One of two symbols is a loss of joy and calmness. Rain has always held great symbolism for humans. As a natural phenomenon that's crucial for life, rain has both positive and negative connotations. It carries the sorrow and joy of people. Rain can bring us happiness. Sometimes it is also associated with tears and sadness. Unlike sunny weather, rain can feel oppressive, gloomy, and joyless. Rain can have a significant effect on one's mood, as most people often feel unhappy and sad when it rains. Now we'll explore the melancholic feelings of rain imagery through a poem written by Li Shangying. Written on a rainy day to my wife in the north. Li Shangying was a poet and politician of the late Tang Dynasty. In the poetry anthology 300 Tang Poems, the number of Li Shangying's included poems rank only after Du Fu, Li Bai, and Wang Wei respectively. However, Li Shangying's poetry distinguished itself from mainstream classical Chinese poetry due to his extensive use of love, a woman as a major theme. Li Shangying lived at a time when the Tang Dynasty was rapidly declining after 200 years of glorious reign. The Tang was once the greatest period of Chinese history. The cosmopolitan capital of Chang'an was filled with traders from the Middle East and other parts of Asia, while many Asian vassal states sent envoys to pay tribute. However, after the Anlu Shan rebellion, the political and economic structure of the country began to disintegrate. After being buffeted by the factional politics of the declining Tang Dynasty and losing his wife at 40, Li Shangying turned to Buddhism in his late years. Although Li Shangying actually wrote some notable political poetry in response to decline's social and political conditions, this has been far overshadowed by his love poems. Much of his love poetry has a melancholy flavor, expressing disappointment and frustration rather than joy and fulfillment. His poems are highly elusive and capable of many different interpretations. His poems, particularly his untitled poems, set a trend for later Chinese love poetry. Judging from the background of the writing, Night Rain Sends North is a letter sent back by Li Shangying, who was far away from hometown, to his wife. Although there are only 4 sentences and 28 words, it fully expresses Li Shangying's deep affection towards his wife and his feelings of being a guest in a faraway place. Now I read the poem for you. 夜雨寄北，君问归期未有期。巴山夜雨涨秋池，何当共剪西窗烛？却话巴山夜雨时。Now the English version, written on a rainy night to my wife in the north. You ask me when I can come back, and I don't know. The pools in western hills with autumn rain flow. When by our window can we trim the wicks again and talk about this endless, dreary night of rain? The poem begins with an answer to his wife's questioning, and begins with a straightforward narrative. Ask the return date, but there is no period, shows infinite sadness. The contradiction between the two constitutes the basis for the emotional development of the whole poem. In the second line, the environment of the guest house shows the mood at that time. Using the images of night, rain, autumn, and pond, it forms a desolate picture which renders the indescribable feeling of detention. What people see is scenery, but what they feel is love. The night rain in Bashan seems to the feeling the loneliness of the guest house, and autumn pond seems to be full of melancholy. The poet could not bear the invasion of loneliness and bitterness. Eagerly looking forward to the arrival of his return, West Window is full of warm family atmosphere, and the trimmed wicks is the symbol of sleepless nights and a good relationship. The whole poem ends in a bright and optimistic atmosphere without falling into boundless depression. The language of the poem is natural and fluent, kind and touching. In the short quatrains, the poet skillfully uses the repetition of words to open up new artistic conceptions, which can be described as unique. The first sentence period is seen twice, as the last sentence repeats Bashan night's rain. The poem not only describes the loneliness of listening to the autumn rain in Bashan today, but also imagines the happiness and joy of gathering together in the future. The poem is simple in language, sincere and affectionate, implicit and timeless, and has an endless aftertaste. And we have another symbolic meaning of rain imagery, that is calmness. As water that falls from the sky, rain is seen as a natural cleanser. It's often used as a metaphor for the clearing of sins and bring us calmness. When it rains, there is a sense of calm and relaxation. The wonder, the sound of rain is often used in meditation, sleep, and music. Listening to the sounds of water drops falling on roof, plants, or the ground is pleasant and rhythmic. Wang Wei vividly paints us a scenery of a tranquil evening after rain in his poem, Autumn Evening in the Mountains. Wang Wei was a leading poet, musician, painter, and statesman in Tang Dynasty. He was one of the third of three most admired poets of the Tang Dynasty. Just like successful Li Bai and Du Fu, Wang Wei has his well-known title, the Buddhist of poem. Wang Wei is known not only for his poems, but also for his paintings. Most of his works are famous for his detailed attention to the natural landscapes. Wang Wei's works bear the imprint of Zen Buddhism views. His poems are often short, 4 lines of 5 characters, and giving an impression of a static scene rather than transformation. On the contrary of Du Fu, Wang Wei came from a high family. He passed the imperial examination and had a successful career, rising to become chancellor in 758. None of his original paintings survive, but copies of works attributed to him are also landscapes with similar qualities. Like folk songs, his poems are simple and refreshing, expressing common feelings with the symbolist words. They are often set to music. One of Wang Wei's poems called Wei Cheng Qu, a song of the city of Wei, has been adapted to the famous music melody, Yang Guan San Die, or 3 refrains on the Yang Pass. In his middle age, when his official post didn't keep him too busy, he lived a half-retired life in a villa in Zhongnan Mountain. The scenic poems he wrote in this period reached the peak of poetic perfection. Wang Wei's scenic poems are closely connected to his scenic paintings. He founded the tradition of combining poems with Chinese paintings. The history of Chinese literary painting started with him. Such paintings are done mainly in ink and attach great importance to bring out the poetry in the painting. Later, critics claimed that there was poetry in Wang Wei's painting and painting in his poetry, and there was music too. He influenced what became known as the Southern School of Chinese landscape art, which was characterized by strong brush strokes, contrasted with light ink washes. Now I read his poem for you, Autumn Evening in the Mountains. 山居秋暝。空山新雨后，天气晚来秋。明月松间照，清泉石上流。竹喧归浣女，莲动下渔舟。随意春芳歇，王孙自可留。Now the English version, translated by Professor Xu Yuanchong. Autumn evening in the mountains. After fresh rain in mountains bare, autumn permeates evening air. Among pine trees, bright moonbeams peer. Over crystal stones flow water clear. Bamboo whispers of washer maids. Lotus stir when fishing boats wades. Though fragrant spring may pass away, still here's the place for you to stay. This poem describes the beauties of the mountain villager after rain and the pure-hearted personality of villagers there. The poem captives its audience by creating a soothing leisure atmosphere and link that natural scenery to human civilization. Wang Wei achieved extreme beauty in this poem. He seemed to have touched the pulse of nature. In the first line, the emphasis on the late arrival of autumn bespeaks a carefree and calm night. After setting the scenery, Wang Wei then focused on two specific aspects of nature: the bright moon and the clear spring. The moon and water are critical connection to human civilizations. In most Chinese poetry, the moon symbolizes a yearning for a loved one, whereas water signifies a source of life. Through the moon, water, and fresh rain, Wang Wei hints at the sustained connection between human and nature. The next lines mention direct aspects of human society, whether it be the women who wash clothes or the fishermen who lower their boats into the streams of the mountains. These mundane, human actions stir the quiet passions of nature. The bamboo rustles, the lotuses bobbed up and down in the water. Finally, Wang Wei applies the most direct link between human and nature by personifying spring as a person who casually lingers around, resting and moving at his own pace. The mountain's aura of tranquility and relaxation allows nobles to stay and rest at their own accord, a symbol of the unity between man and nature. The poet focused on landscapes to express his satisfaction. As a recluse who was a person of unsullied character and pursued the ideal state, Wang Wei knew Zen philosophy well. By describing himself wandering after rain, enjoying peace of mind, he inspired us to be ourselves, discard our troubles by rain brush, and enjoy in nature's happiness. This touching poem is like a beautiful painting. It is also a piece of lovely music. Here, a new realm was opened to ancient Chinese poetry. Poetry, music, and painting reached a new height at the zenith of the Tang Dynasty. The blending of these arts created a talent, Wang Wei. Okay, that's the end of this unit. Thanks for watching. See you next time.